For its time, the idea of Kane and Lynch was pretty good. It's a more gritty, story-driven game, right when video games were making leaps towards truly showing their artistic merits. Kane and Lynch is decently written, if a bit predictable. It has an excellent call to action. However, where it struggles is how the story is presented. I honestly really like the cutscenes. Even the mid-level dialogue moves the story forward and expands on the characters. However, the fade to black at the end of each mission, while the characters continue to talk, honestly takes away from the overall delivery. It feels odd and falls short of the delivery that you would expect from the rest of the experience. Another huge downside of this game is the gameplay. I'm really sad to say that this game's gameplay has aged like milk. I know it was early in the 7th generation, but man, this game really hasn't aged well. The cover mechanics are clearly meant to be looser than Gears of War, but it'll just leave you wishing they'd integrated a more consistent system. But it rarely works, and can hinder your attempts to advance through the levels. There were honestly times that this really bugged me, specifically with the amount of snipers that they throw at you. The snipers feel cheap and seem to be there just to force you to slow down and needlessly pad out this fairly short game. It does throw in some spice to the fairly repetitive gameplay, but I think I would have rather enjoyed my time better with fewer cheap-feeling deaths. Visually, I think that Kane and Lynch Deadman has aged okay. It looks decent for a game that will be old enough to vote this November. It doesn't really stick out artistically from the crowd, but it does look better than some games that would release later on in the 7th generation. Voice acting is pretty good, music is okay, emphasizing the gritty theme, but not exactly noteworthy, and neither are the gun sounds. For its time, Kane and Lynch has reasonable accessibility, subtitles are available, and both spoken and written dialogue are available in 5 languages. It has 3 difficulties that can be changed once per level, which respects your time more than other titles if you want to amp or lower your difficulty. I personally found the normal difficulty quite challenging, nearly enough to warrant me lowering it a couple of times. Controls are remappable on mouse and keyboard, but unfortunately not on controller, which was my preferred method to play the game. Unfortunately, it's not particularly convenient either. While it's available on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 on console, as well as GOG and Steam digitally, I also encountered a few bugs. One where the level failed to transition into a cutscene, and another where Lynch's arm swung around like a chicken on a spit roast. The biggest issue with this game is that it still requires Games for Windows Live, but somehow the included program actually works properly, so it doesn't really affect the game if you have a Microsoft gaming account. Otherwise, the game ran well, and despite the rather bare-bones menu, with its minimum requirements, almost anyone would be able to play this title, assuming they're comfortable with the outdated Games for Windows Live being on their PC. Unfortunately, I didn't really like my time with Kane and Lynch. I don't think it's the worst game, but it really doesn't stand out as memorable. And despite the decent story, the game has elements that simply just doesn't feel like a great experience to me. And with that, I think it deserves an avoid. I just can't think of a time where I would actively recommend this to anyone. But it's not so heinous that I wouldn't recommend that people buy it. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Check out my last review on Stellar Blade and consider subscribing. Till then, this has been Rob the Slob, and I'll see you in the virtual commute.